book teaching you how to save seeds, and even a video about gardening. You'll love it. It's the best out there, and you can find it at Survivalist Seeds.
Welcome and good evening to everyone listening to this program. I am your host, Robert Pino, and this is The Whole Agenda. I thank you so much for being here with us once again. We finally finished our first month of broadcasting. I would say a big rah to us. It's been a challenge so far, but things are smoothing out. And like with any new challenge in your life, you have to go on full force, straight ahead, do the very best you can, and I think we're doing a good job, and I will continue to try and improve this program as we move forward in time. Quickly here, we have canceled the Skywatch with Ed Grimsley, and we are going to cancel that and reschedule it for next month, November. And tonight we have an guest. His name is Jim Rogers. He is a remote viewer, and I'm going to tell you all about him right after we come back from our commercial news break with our correspondent. Paul has very, very hard and relentless and tirelessly put up articles on our website. I recommend that everybody goes to the website, his articles. He finds the most incredible, obscure, sometimes supernatural, sometimes strange articles. But for the most part, his tireless work helping this radio show move forward is a godsend. I thank him for being part of this crew, and I also want to thank my IT person out there, Mel. If she's listening tonight, hopefully she is. I want to thank her for doing such a wonderful, incredible job being the webmaster for this website. Without the people that are with part of this show, this would not be possible. So I want to thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for being a part of this crew, and hopefully this will continue on for a long time. Anyway, we're going to have Jim Rogers coming up in a minute here, and news correspondent Paul Landris has got some news for you, and we will be right back with Paul. Stick with us. This is The Whole Agenda. I'm your host, Robert Pepino.
Good evening, everyone. This is Paul Landris with the Whole Agenda radio show. Thank you very much, Robert, for that intro. Excuse me. U.S. Department of Agriculture. U.S. government's assault against innocent American citizens continues to get more aggressive and just plain strange. There's new reports of harassment against honest growers of ordinary lemon trees. Health Freedom Alliance, FHA, reports that officials from the U.S. Department of Agriculture are now spying on people whom they suspect are in possession of ordinary lemon trees and threatening them with excessive fines and even federal raids if they refuse to surrender the plants on demand. Several years ago, Bridget Donovan purchased a Meyer lemon tree from MeyerLemonTree.com. She's a resident of Wisconsin. She purchased the tree legally and in full accordance with all federal and state laws regulating citrus transport. and had lovingly cultivated and cared for her indoor citrus plant for nearly 3 years. Then out of nowhere, she receives an unexpected letter from the USDA informing her that the government officials were going to come and seize her tree and destroy it, and that she was not going to be compensated for her loss. The letter also threatened that if Donovan was found to be in possession of regulated citrus again, she could be fined up to $60,000. Donovan was shocked, to say the least, as her tree was not a regulated citrus. The store from which he purchased it is fully legitimate, and she has done absolutely nothing wrong. But it turns out Donovan and many others who also purchased similar citrus trees had faced or were currently facing the very same threats made against them by the USDA. Most of those targeted simply surrendered their trees without trying to fight back, Donovan discovered. And while she herself put up a hefty fight in trying to get honest answers in order to keep her tree, she was eventually forced to surrender it as well. Worst of all, many of those who were told that a replacement tree would be in compliance later had those trees confiscated too. Why has the USDA been targeting lemon tree owners? The answer is unclear, other than that they may be a threat to the citrus industry. A USDA official admitted to Donovan that the agency has been spying those suspected of owning lemon trees and targeting all found to be in possession with threats of fines and raids if they failed to give them up. And the agency has been doing this without a valid warrant. I felt utterly violated, angry, and upset, Donovan is quoted as saying by the FHA. I pay my taxes, I obey the law, and this is how I was treated. I did nothing wrong. I would expect those actions towards someone running a drug house, not someone who owned a lemon tree. Sweatshop studies. South Koreans always stomp American kids in reading and math. So they actually had to put a 10 p.m. curfew on coaching school sessions. At least kids study all night long. In fact, the government actually had to raid all-night study classes that cover their windows after 10. Tutoring sessions are supposed to end by 10 p.m. South Korea's crackdown is one part of a larger quest to tame the country's culture of educational masochism. At the national and local levels, politicians are changing school testing and university admissions policies to reduce student stress and reward softer qualities like creativity. In 2010, 74% of students received private after-school instruction at an average cost of $2,600 per year. There are more tutors than teachers in South Korea. South Korea students are the best in the world on international reading and math tests. But the country's leader worried that unless its rigid hierarchical system starts to neuter more innovation, economic growth will stall, and fertility rates will continue to decline as families feel the pressure of paying for all that tutoring. South Korean students are encouraged to stay up late studying and sleep in class. Typical academic schedule begins at 8 a.m. and ends sometime around 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., depending on the ambition of the student. In classrooms, a third of the students slept while the teacher continued lecturing, seemingly unfazed. Gift stores actually sell special pillows that slip over the forearm to make desktop napping more comfortable. Success in South Korea requires winning a spot in a top university. To reduce the incentives to cram, 500 admissions officers now have been appointed to the country's universities, judge applicants not only on their test score and grades, but also other abilities. Still, study groups are responding to the curfew by putting lessons online so students can study late at home. Other groups claim to be self-study libraries to evade the 10 p.m. Government inspectors routinely see teenagers sitting in small study rooms with low ceilings and fluorescent lights. The air is stale. It is a disturbing scene, sort of like a sweatshop for children's brains. A pair of Alabama conservation enforcement officers think they've come up with a perfect way for avid hunters to honor their loved ones for eternity. Officers Dad Holmes and Clint Bell have launched Holy Smoke, a company that will, for a price, load cremated human ash into shotgun shells, rifle and pistol cartridges. It's a perfect life celebration for someone who loves the outdoors or shooting, Parnell says. This isn't a joke. It's a job we take seriously, he said. This is a reverent business. We take the utmost care in what we do and show the greatest respect for the remains. It has established myholysmoke.com to promote the service. For $850, 1 pound of ash will be loaded into 250 shot shells. The ash is mixed in the cups that hold the shot, not the powder. The same amount of ash will fill the pockets of 100 standard caliber centerfire rifle rounds or 250 pistol rounds. For the rifle and pistol ammunition, the ash is put into the tips of the hollow bullets, with the cavity sealed with wax. Any remaining ash is shipped back to the customer, along with the loaded ammunition. Some people have been concerned that a small ash remain in the animal that is shot with the ammunition, Holmes said. But it's just carbon and small at that. We don't have anything to worry about. The process takes about 48 hours from the time the ashes are received, said. People we use are all experienced reloaders and know exactly what we want them to do, he said. Only 1 bag of ash will be opened at a time, and the equipment will be thoroughly cleaned before the next set of remains is loaded. Tim Goodwin, a Montgomery landscape owner and avid hunter, said he sees no problem with the practice. People have had their ashes sprinkled in rivers, in the ocean. There have been ashes spread out of airplanes, he said. If you love hunting in the outdoors, this really isn't much different. People should take care in how the meat that is shot with the ammunition is handled, cautions Robert Chapin, a toxologist. The animal should be killed quickly by the shot to prevent any possibility of spreading the ashes in the animal's blood, he says. The area around where the animal was struck should not be consumed. I would expect, though, that the ashes was less of a problem than any lead pellets historically used. Okay, did you know fortune cookies were actually invented in America and not in China? Fortune cookies, almost unknown in China, and the places that do serve them there, they call them genuine American fortune cookies. And finally, have you ever wondered, synchronized swimming, that is what makes the Olympics worth watching, or at least that's what I'm told. But have you ever wondered, if one synchronized swimmer drowns, the rest have to drown also? Well, that's it for me tonight. This has been Paul Landers for the Whole Agenda Radio Show. Robert will be right up with tonight's guest. Thank you and good night.
Everybody to the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pino, and this evening, it's Monday, October 3rd, 2011, we are live on the Micro Effect radio station. We have an incredible guest, Jim Rogers. Jim Rogers is a skilled remote viewer that has worked at the professional level, having held many workshops over the years since 1997. Remote viewing is a God-given natural ability that we are all born with. Different control elements over our culture that we live in today try to steer us away from developing these skills because remote viewing is a path to knowing of all truths everywhere. When this happens, there are no more secrets, and the society's control elements no longer have control over you. Jim Rogers, welcome to the broadcast.
Yeah, good evening, Robert. Nice to be here, and thank you for the kind introduction.
Well, you're very welcome, and you definitely deserve it. You're an incredible man. I was reading your website earlier. It was quite incredible. And Jim, right off the bat, how did this all start for you, and how did you get interested in remote viewing?
Well, how this all started, this is a little far out for a lot of people, but I used to live 100 miles east of Tucson, out in the town of Wilcox, Arizona. And I noticed these strange lights in the sky, and I would look at them and I would remark to someone else, and I would laugh and say, well, boy, it's almost like it's interacting with us. And sure enough, they really were. And so I set up a scientific experiment to try to prove to myself that I really was consciously interacting with these lights in the sky. And so what I did was I set up a lawn chair facing in a totally different direction of the sky from where these lights would normally come. Because I could walk out on my deck at night, look up at the sky, and say, "Are you there?" And a light would light up. Sometimes it would pulsate, and all the members of my old I used to have a cable TV show, and all of my studio personnel, workers, used to come out from Tucson to Wilcox to watch this happen. Every single one of them would testify to it, my ex-wife too. Anyways, I set up an experiment because I'm a Virgo and I have a Virgo-type mind. And I set up a lawn chair facing an entirely different area of the sky, and I went into a meditation, a relaxation and meditation, and I was staring at one area of the sky, and I said, okay, you guys, if you really are, if I'm really able to communicate with you, then appear where I am looking. And lo and behold, they did. This happened I conducted this experiment about 6 times in a row. And what that told me was that, yeah, we do have a higher level of consciousness, and we're all interconnected with many other things, as Dr. Dean Radin recently wrote about in his new book called Entangled, I think the title of his book is. So that convinced me that I had a higher level of consciousness that was connected to many other different things, even these strange lights. So my curiosity began to grow from that point, and an opportunity came up in 1997, and I had already been interacting with these lights for about a year. Sometimes jets would fly over and the lights would wink out, and the jets would go by and the lights would come back on.
Jim, I got to ask you something. Were you shocked you first did these experiments to find out that, okay, they're actually responding to my thought?
Yes, I was. And it took me a little while to realize how it all worked. And, I'm just a typical pea-brained human, and when this stuff started happening, I said, how do they know where I'm looking? Well, the answer is simple. Our consciousness are so intertwined or interconnected, they're seeing through my mind, my eyes, and everything, and vice versa. We have that same capability. They're just a little bit more adept at it than we are. And, yeah, I was
I would have been
shocked
out of my mind. I mean, Jim, I've seen things that I can't explain, but you taking it to that level is quite incredible, because I don't know how many people would actually be that sure of themselves to say, okay, I'm going to conduct a simple experiment. With most people would just shrug it off and say, okay, it was just a strange thing, it was just a fluke, and they'll take it as just a circumstance of events at that time.
Yeah, well, I wanted to know. I mean, I'm not afraid of these things at all. I wanted to know how and why it works, and it turns out that on a higher level, our consciousness are all interconnected. And once I discovered that, I knew, because I just heard about remote viewing a few years earlier. The big story broke out and so forth, and I'd heard about that, and I said, well, based upon what's been going on out here at night, remote viewing doesn't surprise me either. So I decided to study it, and I did quite well. And before I got involved with any of this stuff earlier in life, I had a technical background. I worked as a troubleshooting electronic problems and instrument and control systems in industry and so forth. I was a certified microwave data technician. I was also certified and licensed high voltage substation electrician, and you only get to make one mistake in one of those places, and it's all over.
Sure.
So,
It's not the voltage, it's the amperage that'll kill you. I know that. I know that. You know what's funny, Jim? It's just curious. It's just on my. So many people that I've interviewed within this past month have either been involved in some sort of military situation or a technical aspect in their lives where they've had, these phenomenon happen to them. I find it also curious. I wonder why that is. I mean, you might have a take on that.
I don't know. I've been both. I was in the military. I actually worked out at White Sands test range from time to time. Even though I was stationed in Germany, they brought us back to White Sands to fire missiles and so forth. And following my military time, I worked in a technical field all my life. I started out in a technical school, and I just worked in those fields all my life, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm semi-retired now. I'm doing some things I enjoy doing. I'm doing a little more research into the study of consciousness. I mean, remote viewing is my main thing, but I'm also interested in doing other things with non-local consciousness. But anyways, I had a TV show, cable TV show. I produced and hosted, did all the editing. I was like a one-man band. I was on a treadmill for 7 years. I produced and hosted 137 live TV shows called The Cutting Edge, Revealing the Truth, and they're all archived and on my website.
Applause to you on that.
Oh, it was a journey, let me tell you. But I dealt with a similar subject matter. I dealt with UFOs, NDEs, ancient mysteries, frontier science, vital health issues, paranormal, and so forth. Because I wanted to awaken people to get the information out there that, yeah, there really is something to this stuff, you know. So all of my shows are archived on my website. But, yeah, so anyways, I got interested in remote viewing, and as I say, a lot of people might not believe this stuff, but when I would go outside at night, in a totally black sky, I'd look up at that same certain area, I'd say, "Are you there?" And whoom, a light would just come right on. And
I mean, that's an incredible experience in of its own, Jim. A quick question here, because we're going to be coming up on a break here real quick. Excuse me. I'm having a speech impediment.
That's okay.
Did you always believe, because I know since I was a young boy myself, I always knew there was something extraterrestrial from our own existence as human beings here on this planet. Debbie, did you ever feel that when you were young in your life?
Oh, yes. When I was young, I would go outside at night, and I would look up at the stars, and I would look at a certain star, and I'd say, I wonder if there's a planet revolving around that star. Maybe somebody on that planet is looking at our star, and we're both wondering the same thing at the same time.
Exactly, because I used to think the same thing when I was a little boy, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, and this actually continued well into my teens and in the rest of my life. Of course, I think most of us just kind of kept it to ourselves until this breaking time right now, really, and it's an incredible time to be alive, But I've always personally felt that there was something driving us forward to a new level of humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think back now, and it's a wonder I'm still alive, because we lived in a huge building. It was actually made of granite, a big granite building back east when I was little. And I used to sneak out on the roof at night with my telescope. And I think back now, it was a slate roof. and I used to go out there with my telescope to look at the stars. So I wonder I didn't slide off the darn thing and get killed, but...
Well, there are definitely no coincidences in life, I could tell you that. That's for sure. I was recanting my own conversation with my mother last night about a certain episode that I found very peculiar. And I said, how was this possible? And we'll talk about it later on the show. But, really, I think that most people who understand and believe, or even if they haven't seen anything, just are openly willing to believe that there's something much bigger than us, though we are all part of the same system. And that's the thing that really sends chills down my spine, because it's such a wonderful, open experience to know that all these, our brothers and sisters are waiting for us, looking at us out there going, when are you going to grow up?
Yeah. Well, I've always had that fascination. That's my other phone in the background. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I've always had that fascination with the stars in the sky, and I was one of those kids. I had a few buddies, and that's all we would do is talk about cosmic things, things dealing with physics, or what little we knew about quantum physics at that point in time. And we would just sit up and talk about these things all night long till somebody called us in the house, in my neighborhood where I was growing up. But I will say I always felt that there was some kind of a connection between all of us, and I didn't understand it then, no matter how far apart we were. I always thought that was true. And now quantum physics is... this is where science and spirituality, I believe, are really coming together very quickly these days. A good friend of mine, Dr. Claude Swanson, he just wrote a book called Life Force. It's as big as the New York Telephone Directory. It's huge, but it's full of wonderful information. And one of the things he writes about is healing techniques, telepathy, remote viewing, all of these modalities that use a form of higher consciousness. He believes that it's actually functioning through what they call a torsion type of energy. And torsion energy, he believes, also is related to gravity. And this is significant because two astronomers, Titius and Boda, proved that the physical effects of gravity between two different heavenly bodies are instantaneous. They're at least 20 billion times faster than the speed of light. And now many of the physicists believe that telepathy, thought energy, healing, qigong, remote viewing, all of these modalities are functioning through a type of torsion energy mode. It's a rotational type of energy. It's not like radio waves, and it's almost instantaneous. So
Jim,
what it all boils... Yeah?
Jim, can you hold on to that thought? So we're coming up on a break here real quick because I want you to...
Okay, sure. Be glad to.
Everybody, this is Robert Pino with the Whole Agenda Radio Show. You're listening to Jim Rogers, remote viewer, and we're going to have an incredible, fascinating show for you this evening. Stick with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. And gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
It's hard to imagine when things are going reasonably well, just how quickly things can change. But what would it take? Economic collapse? Massive crop failure? Chemical or biological attack? So many situations could find you in the grocery looking to pick up food for your family only to find that the shelves are empty. There's nothing. Don't let that happen. Act today to make sure that if it ever comes to that, you and your family will be provided for. Visit freezedryguy.com to look at the wide variety of survival foods available. Freeze-dried foods from the Freeze Dry Guy store longer, rehydrate faster, are nutritionally superior to, and taste better than any other long-term storage food available. Visit freezedryguy.com or call toll-free 866-404-3663. freezedryguy.com.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I am your host, Robert Pino, and we have the incredible Jim Rogers with us, remote viewer. Jim, you were just finishing off on the how and why of how things work, because you're very technical in nature, understanding being in the military and in the sciences of, the understanding of anti-gravitics and so on and so forth. And you were just trying to finish off on a statement, because I had a couple of questions. And I basically I was like, I got to remember what I actually was thinking about saying to you as I'm trying to reintroduce you back into the show. But please take off where you left off from.
Okay, I just wanted to say just a little bit more about what they're learning about torsion energy. The Russians have been researching in this field since 1955, and we here in the United States haven't even began. It's sad because we don't seem to do research here anymore unless we can see a dollar sign at the end of the tunnel. But what the Russians have learned is they built a type of a telescope that magnifies and looks at the things that emit torsion energy. Well, our own sun has a gravitational field and it emits torsion energy. And when they look at it through a torsion-type telescope, they see three images. They see the one that we all see with our eyes at 8.2 minutes, with the 8.2-minute delay, and they see the right now image with no delay whatsoever, and they see a future image. They see three images with it. This is so fascinating, this stuff. And I know I've heard other physicists say that perhaps SETI is wasting their time listening for radio signals when conversations are probably going on all around the universe that we just haven't tuned into yet. And by the way, the Russians have perfected torsion-type communication now. And it's instantaneous. There's no delay whatsoever. So maybe all they need to do with that is just aim it in the right direction, which I find so interesting,
I definitely agree with you. Do you think that, of course, here in the United States, the military-industrial complex or the shadow government, whichever how you want to look at it, which operates either or, have the same technology?
You know, it's a possibility. I mean, I don't rule anything out. If they really have some of the things that I've heard rumors about, then that wouldn't surprise me. But it's not benefiting the rest of us in any way. You know, that's the problem. Yeah?
No, it's always the case, isn't it? Never benefits the rest of humanity. It's so unfortunate. But please continue.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to toot my horn about torsion energy because it is believed to be a part of what makes the modality of remote viewing, healing, qigong energy, and all of these other things. That's what the many physicists believe how this stuff works. They believe it works, but the physicists like to go a few steps further and know the how and why, and I find that so interesting as well. So, anyways, I learned remote viewing in 1997, and at the time I was working, and I had hers, mine, and ours 6 children in the house. I was busy, extremely busy.
Congratulations.
And, well, I'm happy because they're all grown up and they all came out. They all turned out pretty well. So I'm proud of that. But we only had enough money at the time for one of us to study remote viewing. She said, "Well, you're the spaceman. Why don't you go?" So I said, "Okay, I promise I will learn this well enough to bring it home and teach it." And I did. I took constant notes continuously through the entire school, and I did very well. And so I thought it would be a good idea not to keep the stuff to myself, but rather to pass it on to others. Because what I discovered when somebody learns how to use a skill like this, it opens them up. They realize, hey, I really am connected to each other and all other things. And when people connect with that and understand that, it changes their viewpoints on a lot of things pertaining to the world around them.
I agree with you. Do you think there was a lot of responsibility behind that once you realized that this is very, very real and everything is extremely possible? Did you feel a sense of responsibility?
Yes, I did, and I also have a sense of strong responsibility to let people know that remote viewing is a tool, like any other kind of a tool. You know, you can take a hammer, you can build a beautiful home with it, or make a home for somebody else with it, or you could use it as a weapon. So it's something that should never be misused, and it's a tool, and it can be used either way, really. And I don't think it's something that should ever in any way be misused. But my enjoyment comes from, in teaching this, from watching the students light up when they discover that, hey, I can do this. Uh-oh, what does that mean? That means that I'm really connected through everything else, you know. So,
yeah, right,
but,
right. We are all one. That's exactly it. We are all one.
One thing that a lot of people, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying we are all one and we are all connected. That's all I was saying.
Oh, absolutely. One thing that some people get confused, and I'd just like to mention, is that the difference between remote viewing and psychic phenomena. And they're both very real, but they're different. A psychic phenomena you could define as a person's ability to produce information that they don't have any access to. Psychic data or information usually comes like as a flash or like a little short movie clip, but certainly not as a continuous, controllable stream of data. On the other hand, remote viewing is the ability to produce information that's correct about any person, place, thing, event, or even a concept at any point or location in time or space.
Right.
And so, in other words, remote viewing is the ability to start and control a stream of continuous data and not just a flash. In other words, that's the difference.
Right, and I was just going to bring up a point. It's like almost like kinetic energy, where it's focused onto one point, like Uri Geller, with his ability to, bend the the molecules in front of him because he had the ability to control that space in front of him where remote viewing encompasses everything and everyone simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's like anything else. The more you practice it, the better you'll be at it. And the more I think you practice remote viewing or any of these other modalities, the better it makes you at other modalities within higher consciousness. But I don't know if your listeners, well, they'd probably be interested in learning a little bit about the early history of remote viewing, how it all got started, you think?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, the early remote viewing efforts were initiated in response to CIA concerns about reported Soviet research that was going on. They were trying to learn how to do psychic spying, in other words. So our intel sources concluded that the Soviet Union was actually engaged in psychic spying, psychotronic research as well.
And
up until
what
1970,
year did this take place in, Jim? What year did this actually start?
Around, well, that we know of, around 69, 68, 69. Actually, I think it was well before that, but this is only what they could document. But at 1970, the budget, our intelligence people learned that the budget went from 60 million rubles per year. In 1970, it went all the way up to 300 million rubles per year. Wow. Our people got very nervous. They knew that the sharp increase in money and personnel devoted to this research had actually achieved some kind of breakthroughs, and we didn't know how successful they were. We knew that they wouldn't be investing that kind of money without some kind of serious success. So then the famous so-called American Project Stargate was born, and this was one of a number of remote viewing programs that were under a variety of code names. They kept changing the names to keep people off their tails. The names went from Stargate, Sunstreak, Grill Flame, Center Lane, and also
wow.
Scanate. So they did that.
Jim, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Did this spawn off the series Stargate by any chance?
No, I think it was the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, we initiated these programs and the research to access their programs.
Wow.
And so our
That's
own
incredible.
government. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like two people going in circles watching each other. So our own government, over a 17-year period from 1977 to 1995, invested over $20 million, and this was all, of course, kept secret from the general public at the time. But in the early history, when they knew they had to get something cooking, and they had to get something cooking pretty fast to compete with the Soviets, they got involved with Russell Targ and Ingo Swann and a few others out of Sanford Research Institute. And in that early research, they actually developed the first remote viewing sets of protocols, or in other words, a roadmap-like technique that could be used over and over and over again to access data and information from higher consciousness and to actually control that stream of information. And so actually remote viewing could also be defined as remote sensing, because when we're in a remote viewing session, all of our senses become involved. Our sense of inner hearing, touch, taste, smell, temperatures, texture, and so forth. And in fact, the military, of course, they used remote viewing to find what they called, quote-unquote, targets of interest. And corporations now use remote viewing to find out what the competition's up to. They want to know who, what, when, where, why, and the how the competition's doing it.
Wow, that's just
and I think
away. I can't. That's just, hey Jim. It's really gone that deep. I can't believe that.
Oh yeah, you do a Google search on the internet for remote viewing institutions. There's a lot of them now, but I think that most of the corporate type remote viewing, probably greed oriented, trying to outdo the competition, make more money, drive them out of business, and so forth, whatever. But like I said, it's a tool, and it can be used either way. And also, author Jim Marrs, good friend of mine. I did 3 TV shows with him. But he was the first one to publicly break the story on the old ABC Nightline TV program in November 28th, 1995. And he later came out with a book called Sci Spies. And Jim, as you recall, he wrote the book Crossfire about the Kennedy assassination, and Oliver Stone made the movie based upon his book. So he teaches, Jim teaches journalism at Texas. I couldn't think of it. Texas Christian University, TCU over there. But what was interesting is later on the protocols that were developed at SRI by Ingo Swann and Russell Targ and all those boys over there for our military community. Well, guess what? These military people started retiring, and guess what? They brought their protocols home with them. So eventually, these remote viewing techniques and protocols found their way into universities and institutions that were later established. And, of course, the original remote viewers in our military, a lot of them went out and started teaching it as well. And some of them just wanted to get away from it because they were a little bit burned out from it.
Sure. Does this also I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't mean to cut you off, but does this also mean that the latest movie that just came out on the remote viewing, which was the movie Men Who Stare at Goats, which was a total mockery, by the way, of what
yes, it was.
The real essence of what remote viewing is all about. I mean, look, I understand that Hollywood is run by part of the control structure that overall controls humanity on this planet. But to make such a mockery, something so important and so valid and valuable, is disgusting to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a little bit like throwing mud in the water, because if you can make a mockery or a joke out of something in front of the general public, well, the next time somebody else hears about that, oh, I heard about that. That's funny. That's just a joke. You know, they don't take that so seriously. And that's what they accomplish when they do things like that. Yeah.
Well, and it's so sad to me because, you know, first, and it always works the same way. First they mock you, then they try and bully you, and then they just try and silence you. When they can't do that anymore, that's when the exposure starts to come forward. And I bless you and I thank you for coming forward with all the information you have. And I know you've been doing this a very, very long time, Jim. And it takes a lot of courage to do what you do, and so many others like you, to bring all this information forward.
Well, my theory was, when I started out on cable TV, I'm retired from that now, but I know I was reaching 7 million subscribers with every show. I was in Manhattan, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Seattle, Portland, Oregon, a bunch of cities all around the country, really. And I figured if I could scream loud enough and have a high enough profile, that would be my best protection.
Well, you're exactly right. And you actually earned that. And, you know, I bless you for being here to be able to talk to us. Because if it wasn't for people like yourselves and many others that I've talked to, we would still be in the dark about most of this stuff, most of the technology that these people, right, and I use that word very loosely because I don't call them people most of the time, Yeah. You know, you are able to bring forth something that say, look, this has been validated, this is real, and this has happened since the late 1960s. And yet you have so many people asleep on this planet, you know, and they'll gingerly listen to a program going, oh, yeah, that's great and wonderful and so on and so forth, but they really don't believe it. And the point of the matter is that this has happened. This has taken place. And you've proven it, and many others in your realm have proven the reality of what this is. And it really comes down to the subconscious mind of all this. And that's the whole thing that people need to understand, that when you realize that this is real, and then you say, this is real, and then, of course, our wonderful government agencies want to swoop down on anything that they can use tactically against any other country or any other person, for that matter, it becomes more deluge with the ridiculous, rhetorical nonsense that governments tout on a daily basis to the people who are completely unaware, and it's okay, everything is fine, don't worry. You know, it's always the same nonsense. And then years later, Jim, this was 1969, we're in 2011, how many years does that make it? It finally comes out to light. And this is the thing that bothers me more than anything else, is that you have people who are so greedy, so just wanting to hold on to every last scrap of whatever they can get their hands on. It's disgusting. It makes me sick. I don't know any other way to explain this. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it is a very, very touchy and poignant subject for me, because these monsters up on top think they have superseded humanity through this control structure they have created, and I'll give it back to you. I apologize.
No, don't apologize, kid, because I'm right on that same soapbox with you. Just imagine if everybody on Earth was a skilled remote viewer, there wouldn't be any more lying, because it would be impossible.
And you're exactly right, Jim. You are 100% right. But I want to continue what you're saying, because I want to get into some of the remote viewing you've done after coming up on this break, because I know you've done this for a long time,
sure.
And there's some
okay.
I know there's some very poignant subjects we need to touch upon.
Okay, are we going to break right now?
Oh, no, we still have a few minutes left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jim. I really did.
Okay. No, that's all right. Well, when I was working professionally, we worked as a panel or a team of remote viewers. And, you know, anyone can have a bad day now and then, but if you have 6 or 8, or maybe more sometimes, remote viewers working as a team or a panel on the same targets, then if 1 or 2 of them are having a bad day, not as sharp as they normally would be, let's say, put it that way, then the rest of the members in the team are going to come up with connecting data that all correlates. And you can take that to the bank. That is good data. And by the way, let me regress just a little bit, if you don't mind. I think
Sure.
that officially the old remote viewing programs are not budgeted any longer. They're no longer in existence. But I really believe that they're probably going to private contractors now, and it's very easy to hide that in accounting, I think, you know, that type of activity. So
it's privatized through governmental, through the government?
Yeah, there are a lot of institutions that offer a variety of different services, and they could be accepting one service while being billed for something called something else, and get away with it that way. I think they would be foolish not to be doing it. But,
right. Well, money is money, right? Wherever they can get it and grab it.
That's right. Sure. That's right. You know, by the way, this is what's coming up next is a fairly important little piece of information, I think, is there is an optimum time, there is a best time and a worst time to do remote viewing or any other of these modalities like inhaling or dowsing or you name it. And on my website, I have a link. There's actually a couple of links on the front page of my website. And what it is, it's local sidereal time, it's called. There's a curve, a time curve. I'm going to go to the website. I can talk more authoritatively about this. There's an effective, there's a graph on the front of my website. There's a link there. It's called ESP Effectiveness Graph. And when you go there, it'll show anybody who goes there a curve of effectiveness in any type of ESP-related activity. And during the best time is 400% better than the worst time. So people want to take advantage of this, but it all works through local sidereal time. And what that means, sidereal time in a nutshell, is it's an expression or a way of expressing where you are standing on our rotating planet with reference to the brightest part of our galaxy. Because over a 20-year period, they found out at the Cognitive Sciences Research Laboratory out in Palo Alto, California, they found out that there's some type of an interference pattern coming from the brightest part of our galaxy. And it just so happens that the brightest part of our galaxy is when that is at its zenith, at its highest point in our sky. That's when you do not want to do any of these things because you're at the bottom of the graph. And that happens to be 17.75, or in other words, 17 3/4 hours LST. Now, this probably doesn't make a lot of sense just at the moment, but on my website I have a link they can click on, and there's a clock. All you have to do is type in your location and your local time on a 24-hour clock. In other words, if it's 2 in the afternoon, it's 1400 hours. You type your time in that way, and the sidereal, it'll convert it to sidereal time. And then all you have to do is look at the graph and see if it's a good time to work or not. It's that simple.
Wow. Jim, and I want you to hold on to that thought, and we're going to get into the remote viewing right after this break. Everybody listening to Jim Rogers, remote viewer, this is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I am your host, Robert Pino. We'll be right back after this break. Stay tight and stay listening because it's going to be incredibly fascinating after this break.
It's hard to imagine when things are going reasonably well, just how quickly things can change. But what would it take? Economic collapse? Massive crop failure? Chemical or biological attack? So many situations could find you in the grocery looking to pick up food for your family only to find that the shelves are empty. There's nothing. Don't let that happen. Act today to make sure that if it ever comes to that, you and your family will be provided for. Visit freezedryguy.com to look at the wide variety of survival foods available. Freeze-dried foods from the Freeze Dry Guy store longer, rehydrate faster, are nutritionally superior to, and taste better than any other long-term storage food available. Visit freezedryguy.com or call toll-free 866-404-3663. freezedryguy.com.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. And gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
Hello, fellow patriots. This is Big John Lipscomb, and this may or may not be news to you, but we aren't all as free as we could be. Freedom is a choice that must be renewed each and every day with sacrifice and effort. Otherwise, it will erode as government leans against our individual sovereignty. Get prepared and start growing your own healthy heirloom vegetable garden. I have a brand new all-in-one garden kit that includes everything you need to have an award-winning garden. 67 varieties of vegetables, all treated with, again, 67 trace minerals for ultimate growth and health. I have a soil test kit inside, a garden planner, a book teaching you how to save seeds, and even a video about gardening. You'll love it. It's the best out there, and you can find it at survivalistseeds.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pino, and we've been talking with Jim Rogers, the remote viewer, incredible man. I don't know if you've been listening this first hour, but we are at the top of the second hour, and now we're going to get into the remote viewing that he has done, and I have several questions for him. For anybody who wants to call into the program and ask Jim any question, he is open to it. The number is 1-888-747-1968. Again, that number is 1-888-747-1968. I encourage you to call in because now we're going to get into the real remote viewing aspects of what he has seen in future events for humanity and this planet. Jim, welcome back to the show.
Great to be here.
And you're an incredible guest with a lot of information. I'm sorry I took up so much of your time in the first hour. I just had so many things just to add to what you were saying. You know, I think we are all looking at the same thing. I think we're all in the same boat. I think we all want answers and how the outcome of the events that are going to take place on this planet in a very short time are going to unfold in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Well, anyways, could I just tell the listeners that in this, before I step away from this subject
yes.
to complete it?
Yes, absolutely.
The sidereal time, without getting this complicated, what that is, it's a reference or a way of expressing where you are on rotating planet Earth with reference to where the center or the brightest part of the galaxy is with relation to where you presently are. And that is so important with remote viewing and all of these other modalities. I've had people came and took my course. They were involved with other things, and now they're using this now as a tool where they weren't before. And in the past, they'd wonder, well, why didn't it work today? Well, maybe they were doing it at the wrong time, and now they're able to get on the right part of the curve here, where they can be most effective and be more effective. In other words, so if they go to the clock, it's on the front page of my website. It's called the LST. Here, I can see it myself. It's called the LST time clock. Click here, and then you can find out what time your local sidereal time is. And then you can go click on the other link beside it, go back to my front page and go click on the other link. It says ESP effectiveness graph, and you can actually see where you are on the curve. Is this a good time to work or not? And it's not just for remote viewing. It's good for a lot of other things. It can benefit people in many other ways. So.
Okay. Is that electromagnetically based is my question when you're talking about the clock?
No, it's all it is. It's a mathematical conversion. That's all it is, to convert your local time on Earth and your location from where you are with reference to where the brightest part of the galaxy is.
Okay, right, because I was thinking about, and my apologies, because I was thinking about the electrogravitics of the planet itself and how it all falls into the time structure of the planet and the galaxy and, of course, our solar system, so on and so forth.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there's some interrelation there.
Okay, so Jim, my very first question here to you is this. There has been so much talk about 2012, 2011. Now, factually, these things have happened. There are massive sinkholes that have opened up. There are massive fissures that have taken place on this planet. Of course, we saw the Bondiachi earthquake in 2009. Of course, before that, we had Katrina. We had the blackout in New York, so on and so forth, all the way from the 2000 up until now. But most of this has taken place equatorially. Have you remote viewed this, and what are you seeing for the future coming into 2012? This is the big question, I think, on everybody's mind. Where do you think we're sitting at this with the future viewing of our subconscious humanity? I think, and this is kind of how it works, my belief, that it's the subconscious humanity that is being displayed in front of our conscious mind to see what unfolds in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have looked at that in the past, 2012. Excuse me. And so far, the only thing we've seen out of that is more of a shift of consciousness and awakening type thing with people in general, but not everyone. I think it's more a process of polarization where a lot of folks are going to go in one direction towards enlightenment and understanding, and others are going to go to continue to bury themselves in the what would you call it, the media spin, the media belief system they're already drowning in.
Well, right, the continued saga of planet Earth as it stands right now. So basically we might be looking at duality here.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I'll tell you one other interesting target I did some time ago was, and I was working this one blind, had no idea of what I was working on, and I was in the sky above looking down upon something. It was V-shaped, and I kept coming up with intelligent subjects, intelligent beings on a mission, must be seen, must be recognized, over and over and over again. And when I was done with it and opened up the envelope to see what I was working on, it was the Phoenix Lights.
Oh, wow. That's incredible, because that's where we are here in Phoenix. Well, I know you're outside of Phoenix, but that's pretty incredible in and of itself.
You know, back a few years ago, I was also one of the things, a couple of things you don't do in remote viewing is you don't analyze any of the data, and nor do you censor. We don't censor anything. We don't analyze it. And for a human to not analyze something is a very hard habit to break. But you have to do it for a little while when you're working in a session. But a few years ago, I was working on a target, and I saw a lot of water, and I saw a big, giant box-shaped structure on the water. Didn't make sense, but I didn't censor it. And then I could see flashing. I could smell gunpowder. I could feel my cheekbone hitting the floor. This is what we call a dark target, okay?
Uh-huh.
And I could feel my cheekbone hitting the floor. I could see a puddle of blood around my face. And then everything went black. And then I realized what that target was. I don't know if you remember back some years ago, there was what's his name? A guy that murdered the fashion designer Versace in New York City. What was his name?
Yes, I think it was Gucci, I believe.
Yeah, right. And it was that guy. Remember, he committed suicide in a houseboat?
Yes.
And it was off the coast of Florida, and there was a box on the water. Well, the box on the water was the houseboat, and he was falling, collapsing, and I actually felt that part of his consciousness, And this is what we call a dark target. Don't like to do those times, but we have done some interesting targets about prior activities on the surface of planet Mars.
This sounds interesting.
Yeah, which was very interesting, and we did consistently. It comes up over and over and over again about activity there a long time ago, mining activity, and not to veer too far off the subject. The late Dr. Tom Van Flandern was a good friend of mine, and I did a couple of interviews with him. And he has done. He was the head astronomer at the Naval Observatory, and he's done a lot of research in that before he passed on prematurely, by the way. And what he discovered was Mars was, it still is, a rotating body, and only one side of that planet is heavily cratered. And the side that is heavily cratered, the crust on that side is about 20 kilometers thicker than the other side of the planet. So something adjacent to, or very close to Mars, apparently exploded, cratered one side of the planet, and that, obviously that's probably what the asteroid belt is now, something that was impacted and exploded. And if you think about it, planet Earth, if something cracked the crust of this thing open, what would happen with all the pressure inside of this planet? Probably something very similar. So there's lots of interesting scientific facts to back up what remote viewers have been seeing, and it's pretty much the same stuff. Ancient activity, mining activity, lots of activity on the surface, lots of water.
The water reference,
pretty fascinating
really,
stuff.
It is, absolutely. The water reference is a big thing, because this is what the prediction has been, because you can go on either side of this, value of people have taken, where people are saying there's going to be some sort of crustal slip, and there's going to be a magnetic pole shift, which, the crust actually slips, actual physical slipping of the crust of the axis of the planet, where my personal belief is that never happens. We're actually going through a planetary expansion, and as land masses expand and fracture, there is the water inundation. So I'm just wondering if you actually had any remote views on that.
Hadn't looked specifically at that. No, hadn't.
Okay. Well, that's fine. That's not a problem. Maybe we can do that for a future view. Have you remote viewed this year for 2011, and if you have you seen anything out of the ordinary taking place?
Nothing out of the ordinary, other than the political turmoil that we seem to be in. Government seems to be dysfunctional, and that's going to have to come to a head pretty soon, because we just can't continue like that, you know.
No, I agree with you. What have you remote viewed on the basic monetary system on what our dollar is valued on compared to everything based on the dollar, which is all petrodollars to this point? You looked at that.
Oh no, but that would be interesting. The evolution of petrodollars or petrocurrency, put it that way, to see which way it goes.
That's exactly what it is, petrocurrency.
No, I hadn't looked at that, but we did take a look at the Travis Walton incident, and consistently I've used that as a practice target during some of my training sessions, and everybody comes up with the same stuff: the UFO, the energy field, him being picked up and missing for a period of time, and the environment inside the ship, and that's been over and over and over again. They keep coming up with the same stuff. I just did a target for a lady in England. Her son was he had a schizophrenia, and he was in a prison because he'd done some minor crime, but they thought the best way to keep him off the street would be to lock him up. So they gave him a long prison sentence for a relatively minor crime. He used to drive all the other inmates crazy. He was very annoying, and so forth. They didn't have much patience for him. And so he became very distraught, depressed, and finally, he decided to commit suicide in his cell. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat.
That's okay. We all have those.
Yeah, so he did. He committed suicide, and there was a cellmate in the cell with him that said he slept through everything, didn't know about it. And the guards in the prison were supposed to walk by and look in the cell door windows periodically, and evidently that didn't happen either. So we remote viewed that. We come to find out we had pictures of the cell, the color of the wall, the textures of the wall. Outside the prison, there was a river that went out behind the prison on one side and a road on the other. All that stuff was picked up. But the most important thing we picked up was that that everybody was aware and just waiting to him to finish what he was doing. And so, you know, as a convenience for him to be gone and not to be bothering them anymore, they just knew what he was up to, and they let him go through with it.
So what was the outcome of that?
Well, the one who wanted to know about this was his mother, and so we told her.
Could you imagine what she went through?
Oh, I know it. And the irony of the whole thing, they locked him up and imprisoned him for a very, very small crime. I can't even remember what it was. And they gave him a long, long prison sentence just to get him off the street because he was schizophrenic, instead of getting him the right kind of treatment or medication, you know.
That's always the same problem, though, isn't it? that getting the person to get the treatment that they really need instead of the bureaucracy that everybody's put through, and they're shuffled into these, these bureaucratic structures that have been placed in order to, well, not placed in order to, but placed in the absence of the real family values. And this is one of the big things that I really stress is the family value, that it has been destroyed the better part of 40 years. And you can thank one of the main contributors to that are the J.P. Morgan Chase Rockefeller Foundations for the destruction of the family.
Absolutely. It has filtered that attitude, that me-first attitude has filtered all the way down through society. I remember when I first started working, and even before I was even born, in World War II, for example, I think we had a very cooperative attitude in the workplace. If somebody new came on the job, and you would help them get them up to speed because it was the best thing for the company, as everybody knew their job really well. And today, it's a whole different world. Instead of a cooperative atmosphere, we have a competitive atmosphere where the guy beside you won't tell you anything, or you won't tell him anything because you're competing. You have to compete. You have to compete. That's the environment we live in today. It's not cooperative any longer. It's competitive, and it's hurting everything.
Yeah, I agree with you so much when it comes down to that level of understanding. But yourself, myself, and many people who are listening to these programs and many others like this understand the values that have been taken away from the family structure. Now, I want to ask you, what has been your latest remote view? What have you come up with, or your understanding, your value of understanding for your latest?
Well, I just finished doing a workshop. Was it week and a half ago? So I created some practice targets, and they weren't of anything. We did do Osama bin Laden while he was alive, and we did locate him but that was a while back.
No. That's very, very interesting right there. Osama bin Laden. So were we lied to? And I believe 100% we were. That's my personal view.
Uh-huh. Well, we had him right on the edge of the Pakistani-Afghan border, and some viewers had him. A few of them had him on one side, and a few of them had him on the other, which probably indicated he's going back and forth probably frequently. And we did a recent practice. We did a lot of different practice targets. I'm trying to remember. One was the crash at the Reno Air Show. Everybody picked up on that.
I remember that. Yes, I do remember that.
Oh, yeah. I like to take strong markers in consciousness because I feel that they're easier targets for new students to connect with. I did a practice target with my latest group with the Tunguska event that occurred over in Siberia.
Fascinating 1908 Tunguska event. I've attributed that myself, by the way, Jim, that I think it was an asteroid that actually exploded over that region, that flattened or layered 800 miles in a semicircle event that layered out for 800 miles. It was an incredible event. I remember the first time I saw that, I was stupefied. I was amazed. I was enamored. I don't know if that's the right word, but it was an incredible event.
Oh yeah, everybody in the group, absolutely everybody saw the fireball. and these are just new students, just establishing what we call target contact. And everybody saw the fireball, and about half of them actually saw it breaking up in the sky or in the air, and it really didn't make contact as a whole fireball. It broke up before all the little tiny pieces hit. In other words, yeah.
All right. So, what do you think, or not what you think, but what you viewed? You think it was an asteroid, or was it a ice ball, which would be a comet? What did you get from your remote viewing from that? They
sensed it was an asteroid. Coming in at extreme velocity, and when it hit the atmosphere, that was probably like hitting a wall.
Well, that's pretty incredible. In and of itself, that's an incredible thing, because I've always believed that people have said, well, it was an asteroid, or it was a comet, or it was a ship blowing up. But okay, where are the pieces of the ship? Where are they?
I know.
And my next question that I'm going to point to you is this, and I'm sure a lot of people are very interested in this. 9/11. Has it been remote viewed from your group? Building 7, World Trade Center 1 and 2, the Pentagon, and of course the plane over Pennsylvania, which left a giant crater. But we're going to be coming on for the break here in a few minutes. But these are some of the questions that I have, and I don't know if you remote viewed them or not, but if, and I believe, and I think now a better part of 50% of Americans believe that this was an inside job, that it was co-conspirated by the American government with the Israelis, okay, because Mr. Silverstein, okay, said that, well, we had to pull the building. When anybody pull, take down, they use these terminologies, which are very common, okay, saying that we're going to pull the building down. The building 7 was never hit by a plane. Small fires which had already been put, they burned out on themselves. How does a steel frame structure building come down in its own footprint? And then you hear firefighters and policemen saying, we hear these series of explosions, boom, 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 boom. Then there's other policemen and firemen saying we're getting ready to pull the building down. And here's the killer part of all of this, is it would take literally weeks at best, months, if you want to perfect something, to take a building down of that structure. So here you have Twin Tower 1 and 2, Building 7 coming down, Pentagon supposedly being hit by a plane, which we have heard pilots over and over saying that it is an impossible situation. No pilot could ever maneuver what these trainees were supposed to have perpetrated upon the soil of America. Okay, and it's an incredible situation. I want to talk about this right after the break. So
okay,
I want to know if you remote viewed this, your students have remote viewed this, and what you have gotten. Anyway, this is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino. We'll be right back after this break. You're listening to Jim Rogers, remote viewer. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. and gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
Hello, fellow patriots. This is Big John Lipscomb, and this may or may not be news to you, but we aren't all as free as we could be. Freedom is a choice that must be renewed each and every day with sacrifice and effort. Otherwise, it will erode as government leans against our individual sovereignty. Get prepared and start growing your own healthy heirloom vegetable garden. I have a brand new all-in-one garden kit that includes everything you need to have an award-winning garden. 67 varieties of vegetables, all treated with, again, 67 trace minerals for ultimate growth and health. I have a soil test kit inside, a garden planner, a book teaching you how to save seeds, and even a video about gardening. You'll love it. It's the best out there, and you can find it at survivalistseeds.com.
It's hard to imagine when things are going reasonably well just how quickly things can change. But what would it take? Economic collapse? Massive crop failure? Chemical or biological attack? So many situations could find you in the grocery looking to pick up food for your family only to find that the shelves are empty. There's nothing. Don't let that happen. Act today to make sure that if it ever comes to that, you and your family will be provided for. Visit freezedryguy.com to look at the wide variety of survival foods available.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Whole Agenda Radio Show, and I'm your host, Robert Pepino. We've been talking to the incredible Jim Rogers, remote viewer, who has been doing this since 1979, has understood what remote viewing is, has understood subconscious understanding of the human mind and the CIA, and God knows how many other governments have known about this for a long, long time. Now, I want you to call in if you have any questions. The number is 1-888-747-1968 to talk to Jim. And I brought up some questions to him about 9/11, Tower 1 and 2, Building 7, the Pentagon, and, of course, the crash in Pennsylvania. How does this relate to remote viewing? Have you looked into this, Jim, and what is the outcome from all this?
Yeah, we've looked at it from a training level, but not really a very advanced level. But what we have found is that on both of the aircraft involved with the Twin Towers, that it happened. They saw it happen, and there was struggle involved. And one of the things I'd like to mention, I am a pilot. And when you take an airplane, if you noticed how those aircraft flew into those buildings, they didn't have a long shot or a long chance to line up with those buildings. They did it on a curve or on a turn in both cases. And that takes a tremendous amount of experience to handle an aircraft that size, to hit a target like that as you're turning. If you were an inexperienced pilot and you had a a 10-mile run at it, straight ahead, in other words, you could, an inexperienced pilot could probably do it. But to roll into a high bank turn and just as you're leveling out, go smack straight into it, that takes a lot of experience to do that. And but anyways, yeah, they did pick up the struggle in the aircraft and so forth, but never did do anything with Building 7 in terms of remote viewing because I think it's quite obvious. I mean, the building just seemed to collapse for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Right. I'm sorry, Jim. I was just being facetious because I was just going to say, yeah, because I've seen so many buildings just collapse in on themselves from small fires, which we've seen countless buildings. You can and everybody for this audience just Google building steel frame structures on fire, just collapsing in on themselves. You will not find one.
And it had nothing to do with the physically, nothing to do with the Twin Towers, and it just went down. And on the other event, on Flight 93, there was a severe struggle going on inside of that aircraft that was picked up, and as it went down, and if I remember right, I think that thing flipped over, landed or crashed in on its upside down, if I remember right.
Hey, Jim, you feel like taking a phone call?
Sure. Let me mention one thing first, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
It might satisfy a lot of viewers. I don't know if we mentioned my website or not, because if they want to go there and check out that ESP effectiveness.
I was going to let you do that at the end of the show, Jim.
Oh, okay. Fine. Okay,
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. All right.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
We have Craig from Arizona on the phone. Craig, welcome to the show.
Hey, bud.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing, Craig?
Show, my friend.
Let me get away from the computer because it's time delayed or something.
Sure, of
Well, I was
course.
listening to how he originally got involved in listening or learning about remote viewing. He saw the stars in the sky, and he decided to face his chair the opposite way. Now, I had a question about that. Was he thinking about it, or did he say it out loud to, like, just out loud to where the stars or the lights in the sky faced him at that time?
Jim?
I've done it both ways, and these lights in the sky, so to speak, are the same thing the Native Americans call the star people at night. And I spent time up on the Zuni Reservation with a good friend of mine. He's on the History Channel quite frequently. Is Clifford Mahudi. He's their Native American consultant. And I've been out in his backyard with him at night, and we would together we would start talking about these things, and then they just appear. Now, they're conscious entities. They're lights. They're luminous. They're self-aware. They're intertwined with our consciousness. And was it Dean Radin just wrote a book called Entanglement, meaning the same. I haven't read that book yet, I'll be honest with you. I do want to read it. But there's another great book out there I did read, and I loved every page of it. It was called Alien Mind, and there's a website. You can go to alienmind.org. You can scroll down and read it for free on the internet. Excellent book. But, yeah, you could say it, to answer your question, you could say it out loud, or you could think it. Either way, the thought energy goes out there, I think.
That's amazing, because my experience of, what I believe is God, which could be, God or the aliens or whoever, as verbal communication has gotten me a lot further than just thinking it.
Well, what was your experience, Greg?
I'm glad to know that people say it, and I'm reassured that maybe that is Appreciate your time, buddy.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're very
All righty.
welcome, and
Bye-bye.
thanks for calling into the show.
All right, bud. Bye.
All right. Bye. But he brought up a very good point, that the craft above our head, I mean, like you said earlier, you would think about it and will them or ask them to appear in front of you, and then they would be, which is amazing in itself, because if they are very telepathic in nature, the beings, and I would think they would be, simply because their technology is so far advanced from our own, that if you would ask them to appear, and if they understand the communication, which I truly think they do, they would appear in front of us to let us know that we are here. We're welcoming, the beings of this planet, but it's time for the children to grow up. And I've said this many, many times. It's time to put away the matches and time to accept what they are waiting for us to do, to come into the higher understanding, the higher consciousness level, learning and understanding.
Absolutely. And I think that there are phony crop circles and there are real ones. I think a lot of them are real. And I think that that's what the real crop circles are all about, too. I would mention, too, that during those days, this went on for as long as I lived out there. For 11 years, I built a house out there, and finally wound up eventually coming into Tucson here. But when I would go away to a conference or a convention somewhere, I would always have somebody come and house sit, stay in the house while I was gone. And sometimes they actually got scared because the lights were so close they could see flashing in through the blinds at night. And towards the end, before I moved, they really got close. And we had a neighbor that lived about 3 miles away, and that house I built out there was set out pretty much all by itself. And she used to get up real early in the morning because she worked in a bakery. And sometimes around mid-morning, she'd call up my wife, and she'd say, "Was Jim doing something last night?" Well, those lights were over your house again. But I've never had a bad experience.
I would say subconsciously, you probably were talking to them, and they would actually be there and appear.
Oh, I think so. But there's probably a lot of people out there that won't believe this, but I'll tell you what, every single one of my studio workers, when I was doing my old TV show, spent a lot of time out there, came out and watched the phenomena. And it absolutely convinced me about the non-local nature of our higher consciousness. Like we've got a local brain and a local mind that
of course,
there's a lot of the mundane things that we're involved with every day. But every once in a while, we'll have a major decision come upon us, and sometimes there's an argument that goes on inside of us. One side will say, no, and I call this the primordial side. The primordial side will say, no, do it this way, it's quick, it's easy, and it'll be done. And the other side might say, no, that might hurt somebody's feelings, this is going to take longer, but it'll be better, and it'll be safer, and it'll be better for everyone else. So the argument goes on, and the other side will come back and say, screw it, do it this way, don't listen to that side. So it's like higher consciousness versus lower consciousness in our mind,
Yeah, I absolutely got what you're saying. It's the subconscious versus the conscious mind. There's no question about what we have to battle on a daily basis. There's no question. I do it on a daily basis. I mean, what I perceive and want to be compared to what the structure around myself and yourself and everyone else who is awakened. And you're looking at it going, my God, do I actually live here? Am I actually on this plane of existence? Because you have to go through the rigorous or mundane steps to live in this world, but on our subconscious level, we say to ourselves, there's so much more to all what we are truly experiencing.
Yes, yeah. Could I tell you a really interesting, brief story here?
Absolutely.
Is back in 2000, in the year 2000, I had already been pretty well seasoned with the experience with the lights and so forth. And Dr. Stephen Greer came out to Wilcox, Arizona, and I hosted his group out there back in the year 2000. And I selected 5 different locations to do meditations and contact work and so forth. And I wanted to compare notes with him to see how he was doing it, because I knew what I was doing. And it was very similar, very, very similar. But anyways, when it was all over, and we did have some interesting experiences. For example, one night at 10 minutes after midnight, and believe me, we are in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And right in the middle of a meditation, Dr. Greer said to us, please stop your work. Imagine there's a dome over us where our thoughts cannot escape, because thought creates, so create a dome, and don't let our thoughts escape. And it's within about 2 minutes after he said that, in the middle of the night, way out in the middle of nowhere in the desert at night, a C-130 flew about 100 feet right over our heads. So I think it was one of those EC-130s, electronic, with all the electronic equipment on. But anyways, make a long story short, at the end of the week, when we were done, we all went out for a breakfast together at the restaurant, at the Best Western in Wilcox, and we're all sitting around, and we're finishing our breakfast, saying goodbye to each other. Well, I didn't have to go far because I lived there in the same town. So this strange-looking fellow walked into the restaurant, and he's looking around. He's looking at everybody. He's kind of making people a little bit nervous. So finally he spoke up. He said, well, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but I'm from Tucson, and I had a dream last night that there was somebody out here that lived here that could help me, somebody that knew something about UFOs. So everybody just turned and pointed their finger at me because I was the only resident there. And so I said, okay, well, what do you need? He says, well, let's sit down and talk. So we went into a separate booth, sat down and talked, and he told me he had a office supply business up in Anchorage, Alaska, doing very well, and all of a sudden these lights were hovering over his house at night, his roof, and they were downloading him with information that he couldn't handle it. It was so fast and furious, the information. It was overloading his brain. And he showed me a few things that he could do mathematically in a few minutes out of his head that it would take me a couple of days to do. And I'm average with math. I'm not slow at it either, you know.
I'm right there with you.
So this guy, he said, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. How do I stop them? So I told him about my relaxation, meditation, and prayer procedures, and then how to communicate with them, and to tell them to either slow down or stop. I'm only human with limitations. And he said he was going to do it, and I never saw him again. But what was so strange about the whole thing, he came out there on a dream. He drove 100 miles on a dream that he had the night before, where in the dream he was told to find the person in Wilcox that knew something about UFOs. So,
that's incredible, because that almost sounds like the movie script from Steven Spielberg, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they have the dream or a vision, and they are all driven to that point. Quite incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's another example of higher consciousness, you know, of non-local consciousness, certainly.
Well, and that's the whole thing. It's that we live in the conscious mind, but our subconscious mind is the actual reality of where we actually truly live. Because we do the actions, the motions on a daily basis, Jim, but our subconscious mind, I mean, look, every night we go to sleep. We leave our bodies. We astral travel. We traverse the universe. But that's the subconscious mind, where when we wake up in the morning, we have no recollection of any of it. And that's the incredible part, how the universe functions, how this biological, electrical system works that we house our soul conscious mind in. It's an incredible experience.
Absolutely. And if you don't believe it, you'll never have it until you do believe it and understand it. So the skeptics, they can't do these things because they don't believe it. It's that simple. Consciousness creates, and if you're not there, you won't have it until you learn and understand and begin to believe it. And that aspect is that simple. And another thing too is all of these things that, most of these things that we've been talking about tonight are commonplace to Indian Native American spirituality.
Yes.
They've understood these things for thousands of years, and it's no big deal to them. This is an everyday way of life.
But as white people or white Anglo-Saxons or whatever, we've negated the experiences through the selfishness of the actual physical experience that we're living in, and that's the part that I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, the quantum physicist and people like Dr. Witkaswamy, who I spent a little time with, he was the physicist in the movie With the Bleep. They understand that there's a conscious universal field of conscious self-aware energy. We're all a part of it. It's all a part of us. So when something is added to someone else's consciousness anywhere, it all becomes a part of that same field. Sometimes they'll call it the quantum field, the morphogenic field. They have all these different names for it. The Indians call it the Great Spirit.
Right. That's exactly right. Now, Jim, I want to ask
you. And they've known about this for thousands of years. And the thing that blows me away the most is when the white man first came on this continent, they looked at the Indians and they called them heathens. My God, they
can you imagine
the other way around?
The irony in that statement alone, it's absolutely ridiculous. But Jim, because we only have about 4 minutes left, this is the thing I want to ask you, is I'd love to have you back on the program. This has been so enlightening and just incredible to me. In all of it, the whole aspect of your life, from what you've gone through to the remote viewing, it's just an incredible thing to understand, know, and just to talk with you. But I would love to have you back on the program. Can we get a remote viewing session? Because I would truly like to talk about the Nibiru situation in 2012, what you can see coming into the future, and then if at all possible, because I know it's a lot of work, putting a session together, and the 9/11 situation, the lies that we've all been told, and of course, as far as I'm concerned, I really don't need to know, because I think I pretty much know the truth. But for the skeptics out there in the audience who are just new to this listening broadcast, to say, look, this is what we have seen, this is what we understand, and this is what we know. I think it would be a fabulous 2-hour show just to talk about those two things in themselves.
Yeah, it would. Okay. Well, we'll work on that. Could I give them my website?
You have the mics, sir.
Okay. Actually, I have two websites. I've got an old one that's coming down. It's UFOSHOWS.com, UFOshows.com. And if you look through the photos on that site, you'll see a picture of the South Pole on Mars. You'll actually see what looks like an ancient reservoir, a water containment area with the rectangular walls and everything. But my main website, pertaining to everything we've been talking about tonight, is Etheric Minds, ETHERICMINDS, ethericminds.com, and there's some interesting photos on there, and you can click on those links, and you can find out what your sidereal time is. Then you can look at the curve and see if it's a good time to do whatever type of psychic activity you might want to be involved with.
And I also want you to say,
ethericminds.com.
oh, Jim, I also want you to mention that I know you're doing something very exclusive with Clifford Behudi, and I want you to talk about that if you can at all.
Okay. Well, I've been working with on some projects, public speaking type things, and he's been lecturing around, and he's not one of these types that holds things in. If Clifford has a good heart, and if he believes that information will help somebody else, he doesn't hide it and store it. He releases it, and that's what's great about Clifford. And so we've been working on some different projects, mainly set up for public lecturing events and things like that. I've been helping him with. So
I think that's fantastic. You guys going to be doing any kind of documentary with that?
It's a possibility. because I enjoy doing this. I'm sorry, what's that?
I said everything is a possibility.
Oh yeah, especially with documentaries and myself. So Clifford is a great guy, and I'm sure you'll probably have him on the show in the near future. And he'll talk a lot about the very ancient Zuni culture, which is closely related to the Hopi people. They all came out of the Grand Canyon. And just to make a long story short, I believe, we've had 14 known magnetic polar reversals on this planet, and every time we have a polar reversal, the poles become unstable, and there are no poles at all for a period of time, which may last from 60 to 300 years. And when there's no magnetosphere, because there's no poles, then our genetics are bombarded with all these cosmic particles, which are very damaging to us. And I really believe that's why the Hopi and the Zuni people...
We're back. I apologize for that. Jim, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I'm sorry. We lost connection. I don't know why, but I want to thank you very, very much for being on the show. And hopefully we can get a remote viewing session done. Let's talk a little bit about 2012, 9/11, hopefully within the next couple months or so, because I'm very fascinated about the whole subject of how the Earth is changing, this expansion process that we're going through. There's so many different aspects of this, misinformation, disinformation, truth, and I think it'd be an incredible subject to talk about for a couple hours. I think the audience would be fascinated. I want to thank you again for being on this program, and I will be in touch with you to get you back on the program. Thank you so much, Jim.
Okay, Robert, my pleasure. Thank you so much as well.
You're very welcome. And tomorrow night, which is Tuesday, we will have the incredible Professor Bob Chapman on the broadcast, which we will be going from tyranny to freedom.
Regardless of the dollar price involved, 1 ounce of gold would purchase a good quality man's suit at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, and today. You may not be in the market for a new suit, but you don't know what the future may bring. And gold is the one financial constant the world has ever known. It can always provide you with your basic needs. Whether you're looking for junk silver, old silver dollar rolls, gold bullion, or fractional tradable gold pieces, Kettle Moraine is your full-service representative with over 50 years of knowledge and personal experience. Visit FlyingEagleGold.com or call us at 623-327-1778 today for competitive prices on all your gold or silver needs. If you're looking for real financial insurance, call Kettle Moraine today at 623-327-1778. That's Kettle Moraine, 623-327-1778.
Hello, fellow patriots. This is Big John Lipscomb, and this may or may not be news to you, but we aren't all as free as we could be. Freedom is a choice that must be renewed each and every day with sacrifice and effort. Otherwise, it will erode as government leans against our individual